to the 2026 business plan. I'm going to wait for Shauna to hop on real quick because she's connecting to audio. I want to make sure she can hear this before I get going. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. In case you missed it yesterday, I am a fan of the 12-week year. That being said, I think making an adjustment from an annualized plan to a 12-week year plan is really hard to do. It's a mind shift change. So for the past couple of years, I've taught on the 12-week year when it comes to business planning. This year, you can pick whichever plan you want to do, whether it's an annual plan or a 12-week year plan. But what I'm going to teach this year allows you the flexibility to do either. And ultimately, it's going to combine the 12-week year ideas into a plan that works for either. So let's get started with session number 2. Today, we're going to do a quick recap of what we learned yesterday. Then we're going to dig into setting goals, picking out tactics, making sure that you're committed to your tactics. Then we will talk about accountability inside of process control, how to put that on your calendar with performance time, and then, of course, how to keep score so that you know when it's time to pivot or when you're winning. Okay, that's the only way to know how you're doing. So again, the 3 principles that you should be guided by when putting together a business plan is number 1, your accountability or ownership. It's a willingness to own your actions regardless of your circumstances. Okay, accountability equals actions. So it doesn't matter what you have going on, you have to own your actions. Commitment, you're making a contract with yourself. Okay, it's a commitment or a promise. It's accountability projected in the future or ownership of your future results. This is going to result in integrity, self-esteem, and success. And then the last principle is the principle of greatness in the moment. This is the understanding that you become great, the instinct that you choose to do the things that are going to bring you results. Results are the confirmation of greatness, but greatness is the discipline. Okay, if you think of this like a professional athlete, the professional athlete doesn't become great in the middle of the baseball game, let's say. They become great when they pick up that bat when nobody else is looking and they go to practice, okay? So that when they hit that game time, they can perform. So just think of that principle of greatness in the moment. The other thing that should guide you is you should be driven by the 5 disciplines. That's vision, or the fuel that's going to keep you going. Your vision's going to drive your execution, and it's going to drive you to push on when you don't feel like it. We talked about our vision yesterday. Planning with a less is more mentality. The more focused your plan is, the greater your chances are of success. You'll see that as we dive into your actual plan today to move forward. We're just going to focus on little steps at a time, not the entire year. And then we have process control, or what drives success in your tactics. Those are the tools and events that align your daily actions with your goals. Process control ensures that you execute your tactics effectively, and we'll talk about some ways to implement some process control. And then scorekeeping. Okay, this isn't something to be afraid of. It's the measurement to ensure success. If it is your anchor to reality, okay, keeping score provides you with feedback that you're either on target or to let you know when you should pivot, okay? And then the last discipline is time use, or being intentional with your time so that you are in control of your results. So let's recap what we learned yesterday. It was recorded, so you can always catch the recording to dive deeper. But yesterday we talked about the importance of knowing your values and how to uncover those values. We talked about the importance of crafting a vision that invokes an emotional response when you read it. Okay, it's a statement that connects you where you want to be in connection with your values. So you need to keep both your vision and your values in front of you at all time. Your vision is going to keep you going when times get tough, and it's going to be your motivation when motivation might be lacking. You should be reviewing your values as well on a regular basis. Make sure your actions are in alignment with your values when it comes to your business choices and decisions. Next, we talked about bringing in your stats from 2025 so that you can use them to project forward, as well as making sure that you know what your baseline is to ensure that your goals are designed to keep your business running in the black and keep a roof over your head and food on your table. Then we talked about taking some time to dream. What do you want to accomplish next year that is above and beyond your four walls? These are things like vacations, new vehicles, maybe paying off debt, putting money in the bank, maybe just getting current on all of your monthly bills, right? It might be something as simple as that. So by defining your baseline, okay, what's going to keep your roof over your head and your business moving forward, and your dream life, you can then calculate the transaction count that you need to close for 2026 to accomplish everything that you want to do. So now that you have that, if you worked on that last night, you are going to be ready to move forward, focusing in on your goals. And it's time to talk about goals. It's time to own your goals. I'm going to open the chat box real quick. Oh, not a problem that you're late. All right. Think of goals as the outcome that you want. Okay. It's also important to remember that we can't control outcomes. Okay. But we can control the actions. Okay. We're going to dive more into actions in a minute. But for now, let's focus in on goals. For goals to be effective, they should be specific and measurable. You should be able to quantify and qualify what success looks like inside of your goals. The more specific, the better. In addition, you want each goal to be positive. Okay, so let's say that your initial goal is to obtain a fallout rate of signed agreements to properties in contract of less than 5%. That's technically the negative side of things. So what you'd really want is a closing ratio or a contract ratio. So you would like it to be closed 95% of transactions under contract. Okay, so instead of we don't want that 5%, we want the 95%. Stay positive focused. You also want to make sure that the goal is realistic and that it's going to be a challenge. Okay, if you're currently have closed 2 transactions in 2025, having a goal of closing 36 transactions in 2026 may feel unachievable. So it may not be realistic. Okay, you probably could, but it may feel unachievable. So something closer to like 8 to 12 transactions might cause you to have to stretch, but not feel unobtainable. We don't want easy and we don't want impossible. So make sure your goals are realistic. Next, we want to make sure that you take ownership of your goals. If you aren't willing to do what it's going to take to get there, then don't put it on your goal list in the first place. Okay, and finally, your goals should be time bound. You should have a goal date at which you determine whether you have won or lost. For the most part, this is going to be the end date of 2026 or the end of December 2026. Okay, so there are our guidelines for goals. All right, so let's look at an example. I'm going to take mine and then I'm going to reflect it back to what it might look like for you. So remember, your goals should be tied to your vision. Okay, so first I would revisit my vision. My 3-year vision that I crafted was to be established as a real estate coach, leading new agents to success during their first 90 days in the business and helping established agents grow both personally and professionally to have the life and business that they envision. I will have at least 10 weekly coaching clients and create and be running at least 3 coaching modules with at least 100 agents participating. Become a certified car forms trainer, working no more than 3 days per week and only 48 weeks per year, right? So any goal that I design should be in alignment with that vision. So keeping that vision in mind, I would next come up with the top 2 to 3 goals that's going to help me move forward. Okay, the 2 to 3 things that are going to be my priority for 2026, okay, to help me get the outcome that I want this year, building towards that 3-year vision. So for me, those items might be number 1, release the new agent modules to other brokerages and get at least 50 subscribers this year, right? That's working towards my 100 subscriber goal. The second might be to get certified as a CarForms trainer. And the final goal might be to secure 5 weekly coaching clients. If my 3-year goal is 10, then let's start working that direction. So remember, they should all be specific and measurable. Okay, for all 3 of these, I know exactly what done looks like. The first one is done when I have at least 50 subscribers. The second is done when I'm a certified CarForms trainer. And the third is completed when I have 5 weekly coaching clients. All 3 items are positive. And I would say all 3 are realistic, but also a stretch at the same time. Remember, we don't want them to be too easy, and yet we don't want them to feel impossible. For ownership, I have to be willing to be committed to doing what needs to be done to achieve the goals. And so I'm committing to do what it takes. And they are time bound. They are all to be completed by December 31st, 2026. Okay. Now, let's look at your guys' goals. So maybe your 3-year vision was to be debt-free or to have $50,000 in the bank. Or maybe it was to have a net worth of $100 million or $1 million or own 3 investment properties. You would derive your goals based on that vision. Okay, so let's say that your 3-year vision included being debt-free in 3 years. Or on your dream life form, remember that form we talked about yesterday, you should have put in there what you would want to pay off this year in order to meet the goal of paying off that debt in 3 years. So make sure that your dream life section of your form, that spreadsheet that I gave you yesterday, is in alignment with your vision, because that's going to calculate out the number of transactions that you need to close in order to hit that dream life. Okay, so I'm going to keep your goals focused in on transactions that you need to close in order to reach your dream life, assuming that most things are pulled into that form. Not that money is everything, but ultimately, like if we want to be debt free, we have to be able to pay off our debts, right? Or if we want to be able to create passive income, or we want to only work 11 months of the year, like we need the income to be able to support our outgoing expenses so that we can do that. So notice here on goals for 2026, I broke it down by buyer transactions and listing transactions. Okay, just because I think that that's important to do. Like how many transactions you think will be buyers versus sellers. And if you noticed on the form that I promised to update yesterday, I did right after we got off the call. I broke it down on there by listing transactions and buyer transactions as well. So you would know if you closed most of your transactions last year were buyer transactions, then you may want to be buyer heavy coming into this next year, or you may want your focus to be getting more listings so that you can be listings focused, driving more transactions and doing lead generation that way. So just be mindful of that. You can just make it one line item of, hey, I want to close 11 transactions. Okay. Also, if you notice, I put a plus. So it's close 5 plus listing transactions, equaling $50,000 in GCI or gross commission income by December 31st, 2026. Because I'm always going to take more. I'm happy to exceed my goals. I've given myself room to exceed those goals by adding that plus. Okay. And I did the same thing with both listing and buyer transactions. Now, if there's something that doesn't translate from your vision to your dream life form, right, you can feel free to add that portion of the goal here, or even if you just want to keep something top of mind. For instance, if on your 3-year vision, you had pay off $50,000 in debt already, even though this is already being taken in account with your dream life form, you probably put on your dream life form, I just picked the number of like $10,000 in debt this year. You could put that on your goal list as well, just so it stays top of mind. Okay, so you're welcome to add those things on there, or, make, pay for Disneyland vacation for the family by May, 31st, 2025 for our, summer trip to Disneyland, right? Whatever that is, you can put that on your goals list as well. But just know that those items, most of them are going to be tied into that listing and buyer transactions. Okay, any questions so far about putting your goals together? All right. Let's move on to tactics. Once we have our goals written down, we've confirmed that they meet the criteria for effective goals. The next step is to identify the tactics. Those are going to be the action steps that need to be completed in order to achieve the goals. Okay, one way to do this, and the way that I highly recommend, is by creating a brain map. You're going to write down your goal and then begin making bubbles around it with all the steps needed to achieve that goal. You know, it's like that thing that you used to do in English class when you were in like junior high and high school of how you were going to craft your story, right? It's highly effective. And the reason being is that that approach oftentimes leads to more creativity versus just making a to-do list. And we want to be creative. It's going to take you out of that linear thinking into creative mode and make you think a little bit more outside the box. And at this first step, we're not worried about making a full action item or full action steps. We're just trying to get our ideas down on paper. Okay. And while you're working on it, you might get stuck a little bit. You might think that you're done. Okay, walk away, go get a snack, go for a walk, come back, give it a moment or two before moving on, because often what happens is your most creative and powerful ideas will come to you after you get stuck. Okay, you may even want to sleep on it and come back the next day. Also, you probably will have ideas and sub-ideas. For instance, if my goal is to lose 10 pounds, one of my ideas to lose 10 pounds might be to exercise. Then coming off exercise, I may determine that I need to schedule time to exercise. I may need to buy exercise equipment. I may even need to find an exercise buddy. Okay, does this make sense to everybody? I'm going to show you an example here in a moment. Okay, once you've brain mapped all your ideas, then you're going to select only the most critical ones or the most impactful tactics, the ones that are going to have the biggest impact on hitting your goal. Okay, the ones that are going to be the priority, because these are going to become your current tactics or your action steps. So here's what that looks like. So if your goal is to close 11 transactions, okay, maybe you can hear it echoing in your head of me saying, you should have 5 methods or lead generation. So you decide maybe you should start there, right? You're thinking you should make, have your database and leads from listings be your top 2, because again, you can hear me like beating you over the head with those 2 methods. So we wrote those down somewhere. Let's see here. We've got leads from listings right there, and we have our database. Okay. And then you take some time to think about what other forms of lead generation you might want in your business. And you decide that maybe social media, open houses, and farm would be a good idea. Okay. So we've got farm, open houses, and social media. From there, we're going to start to make some ideas of what does that look like? Like, what do I need to do for my database, right? Let's see, maybe I want to automate the database. And before I do that, I probably need to put all my contacts in one database. I may need to define those touches or interactions that I'm going to make with my database. Hold on, I'm just moving you guys around. I may need to get missing information filled in. Oh, Amy talked about like a newsletter. So maybe I need to create a newsletter, and I probably actually need to call people in my database if I'm going to get transactions from that. So that's kind of what I have for database. Leads from listings, I'm like, man, I probably should have for sale signs. I should probably get listings, maybe create a follow-up plan, and probably answer my phone from getting listings. I need to develop a lead capture system, create system of how to market my listings, right? So I'm just going to throw all these ideas out there on the paper. Same thing when it comes to open houses and farm and social media. Okay. Now you're probably like, oh my goodness, Amy, this looks like a mess. You're right. It does. You could do it on a whiteboard and then like take a picture of it too. That way you could like delete and have lots of space. I guess it'd be erasing, not deleting. But once we have our brain map done and we've taken some time, now I came up with this one in like 10 minutes. Spend more time on it than I did. Really, like I said, kind of create it, walk away from it, come back and look at it, maybe one paper for each method, whatever you want to do. Okay. But what we're going to do next is we're going to define just the top things that we're going to focus on first. Okay, if I tried to do all the things that are on my brain map, what's going to happen is I'm going to get overwhelmed and it's going to lead me to not do anything. Okay, my forward progress would come to a halt and nobody wants that. So we want to just focus on a few things at a time. So when I look at this brain map, I'm going to then circle or highlight or identify what I think are going to be the top tactics going into 2026. So, right? So I'm sitting there looking at this and I'm thinking, gosh, Amy always says, start with your database. The money's in your database. Those people already know you. They love you and trust you. And since I keep failing at focusing on my database, 2026 is my year. That's where I'm going to start. And I decided that my top items that I should focus on with regards to the database is let's get all of my contacts in one database. I've got some on my phone, some on social media. I've got pieces of paper floating around my office. I have sign calls. You know, I've got all these different things. I've got Zillow leads, like they're all over the place. So I'm going to get them all in one database. I also probably should start making contact with all those people that are now in my database. I'm going to need to define how I'm going to interact with the people in my database, right? So put all contacts in, define touches, and make contact. And then I'm like, all right, that's probably enough. Okay, is that all I'm going to do for 2026? No, but that's what I'm going to start with. So this is where we're going to kind of blend like an annualized plan with our 12-week year or our quarterly system and think about what do I need to do this quarter in order to drive myself forward in getting deals out of my database. Okay, so I'm just going to focus on a few things. Okay, I'm not even worried about other methods of lead generation right now. Does that mean that during the first quarter, I'm not going to host an open house? No. Does that mean that I'm not going to answer my phone when somebody calls because I get a listing? No, I'm definitely going to try to generate leads from listings. I might be hosting open houses. I'm probably going to be posting on my social media, but that's not my focus. That's not what I'm going to do during my strategic time blocks of trying to move my business forward. Okay. And notice here, I'm not even worried either about the newsletter or getting missing information from my contacts right now. I just need what I have in my database and I need to start making contact with them. Okay. Our goal here is less is more. What can I focus on in like 6 hours a week that's going to drive my business forward and help me capture what I want to do business-wise? Okay. After I complete these tasks, once I have everything in my database, once I define the touches, once I make contact with everybody, then I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to say, okay, what else am I going to do next? Okay, what's the next step in driving my business forward? Is it getting missing information? Is it creating that newsletter? Is it getting leads from listings? What needs to happen next? Okay, so I'm not locking myself into anything. Okay, I would focus on what tactics you are going to complete each quarter. So think of it kind of in a quarterly fashion. Not worried about what happens in quarter two, not worried about what happens at the end of the year. Are there any questions about this idea? Okay, once we've identified the things that we want to focus on, those key activities that we want to focus on or need to be completed in order to achieve our goals, we want to write them down. Okay, and we're going to follow some rules. Our first rule for our tactic is every activity should support our goal. Okay, they should all be written starting with an action verb and written as a complete sentence. Okay, each item should be able to be completed as written without a lot of prep work. You need to specify the frequency and the due date. There may be some things that are done daily while other things are done weekly, and yet others might be a one-time task. So let's write down those tactics. Okay, so again, they should support our goal. Start with an action verb, be written as a complete sentence, be executed as written, and specify a frequency and due date. Now, I did not specify a frequency on this, so I actually probably should go back in there and edit it. But it would translate into the following. My tactics with regards to my database plan might be input all existing contacts into database by 12/31/25. Okay, now they're supposed to be done without a lot of pre-work. This may take some pre-work. I might be like, oh, I've got to find my contacts. So I might need a tactic before this one that's locate all contacts and make a list of where they're located or something to that effect. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If I know where they're all at, then it's just, hey, let's get them in the database. Okay, if you're thinking I got the date wrong here because the due date is December 31st, 2025, nope. Not wrong, because remember, we're going to start working on that plan now. So in order to get closings from my database come the first of the year, so I'm on track for how many closings I want to get, some things can be done now to bring in those closings. So if I'm starting mid-November on my business plan for 2026, it's realistic that I can have all my contacts in my database by the end of this year. Okay, that would be the goal. Next, my next tactic is define interactions with database by 12/31/25. Then define call system for all my contacts in my database by 12/31/25. And finally, call all people in my database using a 3-attempt approach by March 31st, 2026. Okay, basically the end of this year, I'm going to focus in on getting everything set up so that come January 1st, I'm making those phone calls. Maybe even before then, I can start making phone calls and get all of those people contacted that are in my database by the end of that first quarter. Now, if I was going to put frequency on this, input all existing contacts into my database, that's a one-time thing. Okay, it might take several hours to get that done, but it's not an ongoing thing. Once they're in there, they're in there. Define interactions is a one-time event. Define call system for all my contacts, like who am I going to reach out to and when? That would be a one and done. But then call all people in my database using the 3-attempt approach. That's probably going to be a weekly activity or even a daily activity. Well, it's ultimately a weekly activity because we're using the 3-attempt approach. So if I was going to add frequency to that, that's what it would be. That way I know when I go to look at my calendar, what needs to go on the calendar. Okay. Now, again, this does not mean that my plans are going to stop when I complete all 4 of these tactics. Okay, once I complete these tactics, I'm going to go back to my brain dump, select the next tactics to work on. In fact, I might complete 1, 2, and 3 on here, start making those phone calls. Once I'm consistent in those phone calls, then I'm going to go back and grab a couple more tactics off my brain dump. So I'm going to save that brain dump for all year to work off of. Any questions here about tactics? If you took and put all your tactics on here for the whole year of what you want to do for each of your lead gen methods or whatnot, I can guarantee you that you're going to end up with like 50 tactics. You're going to start feeling overwhelmed and it's just going to be too much. So just focus on a couple at a time. I promise you'll be successful that way. When we create our goals and our tactics, we need to be 100% committed to achieving those goals and accomplishing the tactics. Your commitment is a conscious decision to take action and create the result. Okay, this is why I'm saying select tactics to execute by quarter, even though our goals might be for the whole year. When we make a commitment, it's important to understand that every commitment comes with a cost, right? For example, if you're committing to host 10 open houses during the first quarter, this means that you're going to be giving up your Saturday or your Sunday, or at least 10 of them, right? Through that first quarter. And it might mean giving up time with friends or family. Okay, are you willing to do that? By identifying the costs up front, we can ensure that we're willing to make the commitment. So for each commitment that you make in your tactics, make sure to assess the cost and ensure that you're willing to pay the price. For a tactic of like mailing something to your farm one time a month, right? There might be an actual cost or the cost of the flyers, which may mean like the commitment might be $350 per month in mailers. And do you have that kind of money, right? That to reinvest in your business to make that successful throughout the whole year, or at least the first quarter, right? So by identifying costs up front, you can ensure that you're willing to make the commitment. So make sure that for each commitment that you make in the form of goals or tactics, that you take time to assess the cost. And remember that some may be more tangible costs than others. So you need to ensure that you're willing to pay the price for the success of the goal. If you're not 100% committed because of the cost, okay, let's say that you're like, yeah, I said I was going to do open houses. That's 10. My kids are in sports. Their sports are always on the weekends. That means that, gosh, either I have to do open houses during the week, which in my experience, maybe they're not as effective, or I've got to not show up for some of my kids' sporting events. Am I willing to do that? And if the answer is no, that's okay. Take it off your list. Go back to your brain dump, pick out something else. Okay. I would go back to my brain dump and I would put a big like black or red X over that one, that the cost is too high, because it's too high, at least right now. Okay. You can choose other tactics that's going to bring you success to your goal. And in some cases, you might decide that the cost of the goal itself is too much. And that means you need to reevaluate your goal. Okay. Anybody have questions? All right. When we make commitments, there are a few obstacles that may prevent you from being able to hold true to your commitments. It's important to address them, reset, and move forward. Okay. One thing that happens is we set goals and tactics, and then, oh my goodness, life gets in the way and you're not able to meet your commitment. Okay. Here's the reality. Life is going to happen. Okay. You're making a commitment to yourself to do this. And in case you're not able to follow through when life happens, you need to not get disappointed in yourself. Okay. Don't give up. You've got to get back up and keep going and try to figure out how to anticipate that in the future. Okay. Don't let it knock you down and take you out of the game. Another pitfall that you might be running into is that you become unwilling to confront the breakdown when you miss a commitment. My commitment this quarter was 10 open houses, and the end of the quarter is next week, and I've done 5. Okay, wah, wah, wah. So if I'm like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that and pretend it doesn't exist, then that's not going to help you grow. So the only way that you're going to move forward is to confront the breakdown and learn from it. Okay, why did I only do 5 open houses this quarter if my goal was 10? What got in the way? What prevented me from doing it? Review what happened, identify why you missed the commitment, confront the breakdown, and recommit to the process and the promise. Okay, the more willing you are to confront your missed commitments, the more growth you will experience in your ability to make and meet commitments in the future. Okay, if you're like, man, I only did 5 open houses because, well, the first half of the quarter, I'm a new agent and I'd never done one before and I'd shadowed a couple, but man, I was so nervous to do an open house, I just kept not doing them. Or maybe you're like, well, it's not safe to do open houses alone, and I had a hard time finding somebody to sit at an open house with me, so I need to figure out a better plan for that, right? So figure out what held you back and how to make it happen in the future. Finally, another pitfall that you might encounter is that you may make promises that you can't keep. Okay, sometimes we say yes when we should say no. Okay, you avoid the pain of saying no up front only to disappoint yourself and potentially others later on. You need to put a high value on keeping your word and avoid making promises that you cannot or will not keep. It's okay to say no. Okay, remember, number 1 is we're making a commitment to ourselves. So if we're saying, hey, I'm committing to 10 open houses over this next quarter, then when somebody says, hey, do you want to go here? You want to go out of town? And you're like, man, I had an open house planned for this weekend, but that sure sounds like a lot of fun. It may mean saying, no, I can't do it this weekend, but I can do it next weekend. Or I can't do it Saturday because I have an open house scheduled, but I can do it Sunday. right? So it's okay to say no. It's okay to hold up to the commitment to yourself. Remember, if we do say yes to something, which makes us say no to something else that is going to make us not follow through on our commitment, we probably want to move that commitment to another day or time. We can't just erase it and forget about it. Okay, if you erase, you must replace. All right, so now that you've defined goals, we've talked about tactics. It's important to enact the elements of process control to help you execute at your best and overcome any obstacles that you may encounter along the way. Your process control tools will be your weekly plan, your weekly accountability meetings, daily huddles, even if they're with yourself, weekly themes, and celebrations. So let's look at each of those in detail. The weekly plan is going to be the first part of your process control, and it's going to be your guiding light for success. Okay, you know what they say, failing to plan is planning to fail. So for your weekly plan, you're going to want to review your goals and tactics, what is done, what needs to be done. Remember that some of our tactics were repeating weekly tasks or daily tasks, and others were one and done tasks, and they all had due dates. So what commitments need to be done this coming week to move us forward and keep us on track to achieving our goal? Now, keep in mind that your weekly plan is not going to be a to-do list. It should only reflect the critical and strategic activities that need to take place this week to achieve your goals and tactics that we set in motion already. In other words, there will be other things on your calendar besides these items, things like showing properties, client and lead follow-up, things that need to be done. But for our weekly plan, we're going to identify only the key things that are going to move us closer to our end goal with relation to our tactics. Okay, an effective weekly plan has 3 parts. You're going to look at and restate your goals. You're going to break down the tactics that need to be completed and identify the day that they need to be completed on. And then you're going to identify when in your strategic and buffer blocks, you're going to identify when your strategic and buffer blocks will be for the week. We're going to talk about those blocks more here in a moment. Your weekly plan should be in writing, not just floating around in your head. And it's going to be your roadmap to success, which means you're going to reference it multiple times a day. At the beginning of each and every week, you're going to create your game plan for the next 7 days. You're going to put those things on your calendar. Okay, and we're going to talk more about how to do that again here in a moment. Once we have our weekly plan created, the next step is to attend a weekly accountability meeting or a WAM. Okay, it is so important that you have support as you work to complete your goals. So I would recommend pairing up with 1 or 2 other people that can help support you in meeting your goals. Peer support is a proven and powerful way to increase your degree of success. So find someone, an accountability partner or 2 that you can meet with on a weekly basis. I would recommend finding an accountability partner that's someone in the same level of business that you are in, working towards very similar goals. So if I'm a newer agent and I've closed a couple transactions and I'm looking forward to closing 11 in 2026, I want to find somebody that's kind of in that same boat, somebody that we can push and grow together. Okay, find an accountability partner. And like I said, it could be 2, it could be 3, just a couple people that's going to help keep you on track and help you push forward. Your weekly accountability meeting, your WAM, is going to be a short weekly meeting, usually held on Monday, after you've completed your weekly plan. It should last a total of no more than 30 minutes with an intention of fostering personal accountability. It's not your WAM accountability partner's job to hold you accountable or dole out negative consequences. Okay, that's your job to do for yourself. Your WAM agenda is going to be to include a report out of results. How did you do last week on your tactics? What's working? Where are you struggling? And what's your action commitment for this coming week? You can also get and give feedback and encouragement, and then close and identify any follow-ups. Like you might say, hey, accountability partner, can you please check in with me on Wednesday and make sure that I completed my strategic time block? Okay. You may also want to develop rules for your WAM meetings. Okay. As a member of a WAM or a weekly accountability meeting, your job is to press in and support the other members. If someone isn't prepared, it could be your rule that you ask them to step out, get prepared, and come back in. If they're performing poorly, ask them what's keeping them from following through and what will they change moving forward. Your job is to help each other hit your goals, not be friends and not beat people over the head. Okay, check in with your accountability partners weekly. The next tool for process control is going to be your daily huddle. Okay, normally I would say this should also be with your accountability partner or partners, but I'm going to give you permission to meet with yourself if meeting with your accountability partner daily seems overwhelming. During this time of your daily huddle, you're going to briefly report out on yesterday's accomplishments and today's intentions. Short, sweet, and to the point. If you're meeting with yourself, don't skip this. What went well yesterday? What did I accomplish yesterday? What am I going to accomplish today? If you're meeting with your accountability partners, it can be in person, on Zoom, in Google Meets. Be face to face. Okay, it's going to lead to greater honesty. And keep in mind, it's really only going to be about 5 or 10 minutes max. And right, I mean, think about it. If you knew that tomorrow you had to report on your successes for today's actions, would you be more likely or less likely to complete the actions that you said you were going to do today? Right? Probably more likely. And remember, your accountability group is not responsible for holding you accountable. Only you can hold yourself accountable. They are there to deepen your level of self-accountability, give suggestions if asked, and ultimately be there to support you. Okay, so make sure that we have our weekly plan, weekly accountability meetings, and daily huddles. In addition to that, I would create a weekly theme for each week's plan. Your theme should create emotional excitement and connection to your plan. It should align and reinforce your priorities and goals. It should be motivating and help you to maintain focus. You can use it as a, I'm drawing a blank right now, a daily affirmation, right? Something like gratitude, service excellence, own it, face your fears, right? Not long. One word is sufficient. Something you can keep up in your office for the week and is going to help propel you forward. So maybe if this week you're going to start making calls to your database and that gives you all the anxiety to pick up the phone, then maybe a theme like face your fears might come into play. Okay. If you're having problems coming up with weekly themes, Google search maps bold laws. It's a great place to start. Here's some of those bold laws. You could just pick one for each week. It's things like don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. Be, do, have. If it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist, right? If you're having problems getting distracted with things outside your calendar, there is no try. Motion equals emotion. Fear or faith, you choose, right? There's some great nuggets inside of these. So if you need help coming up with weekly themes, look those up and utilize some of those until you can come up with your own. The next part of process control is plan to celebrate. Take time to identify something that you would find motivating and inspiring, something you can look forward to when you successfully execute each tactic. Shauna, you would find those if you just Google search maps bold laws, so MAPS, and then bold BOLD laws LAWS. It should pull up those bold laws. It's from the MAPS coaching program. Okay, if you have struggled through your plan, you may not have a big celebration, right? Or if it's just a small item. And on the flip side, if you had major breakthrough, you may take like a full day off or a week to celebrate your win. Okay, Remember too, we want to reward the action, not the results. Okay, celebrations may look different to each person. It may be a gift or a reward. It could be time off with family, a vacation, a day to yourself. It's whatever is going to motivate you to get it done. Make sure to write down your celebration item and make sure to plan it out. Okay, if it's time off, are you going to do something? Are you just going to sit by the pool all day? Are you going to go on vacation? Where are you going? Who's going with you? Do you need reservations or tickets? What's the gift? Where are you getting it from? Have a plan, be specific, and make it something that's going to motivate you into action. And if you don't meet the deadline or you don't complete the tactic, do not reward yourself for actions that are undone. Okay? All right, so make sure to celebrate. So there are some items that may prevent you from finding success. So here are some success tips. The first is failing to plan weekly. You are never too busy and you will always need your weekly plan. You are not better than it. You don't already know what to do and you do need to be held accountable. So sit down and complete your weekly plan is going to ensure your success. Also, remember that your weekly plan is not a to-do list. It should only contain the strategic task from your tactics that are going to lead to the success of your goals. You can create a separate to-do list for the lower level activities that need to be done. Do not add tactics to your list until the ones you've selected are done. When we give ourselves permission to add tactics that are not part of our plan, it often causes us to get distracted by urgent activities that aren't necessarily strategic in helping us meet our goals. So instead of adding tactics, write down what it is that you think should be added. That way you can potentially add it in once these tactics have been completed. Also, remember that every week is different, so don't copy and paste from one week to the next. Spend time each week reviewing and setting up your week for success. Use the weekly plan as your guide each day and keep it in front of you and reference it often. Any questions before we move on to performance time? All right, moving right along. Now that we have our weekly plan, let's talk about how to effectively put it on our calendars so that we can hold ourselves accountable to execution. Oftentimes, what happens is that we get so buried in the daily activities that we believe we don't have time for anything else, right? It never fails. You'll be like lead genning, doing open houses, working your farm, and then all of a sudden you get something in contract, and now everything goes out the window, and that's all we focus on. We don't want to do that, okay? We want to deal with the urgent, but we still need to make time for the importance. So let's cover a few constructive beliefs that we should adopt when it comes to our calendar. The first thing is your time is as valuable as the time of others. As realtors, you will often throw out your calendar the second a client calls to go see properties or deal with things that start to catch on fire, and you forget that you didn't complete the activities on your calendar. Okay, so you may save this deal, but ultimately your business is going to suffer over time. So what you're doing there is you're valuing your client's time over your own time. To achieve breakthrough, you need to see your time is as important as that of your clients. In addition, we believe that we can get it all done if we work fast enough or hard enough or long enough. We can do it all. The reality is that we cannot. Okay, studies show that the average professional in America often has 40 hours of unfinished work on their desk. So it's okay to admit that you can't get it all done. This means that we need to shift how we do things and we need to prioritize the strategic but less urgent work required to create our business breakthrough, thus allowing us to fulfill our vision. And then next, we need to embrace the idea that we should prioritize the high priority, money-making, results-generating activity first. Okay, this is why we always talk about doing your lead generation in the morning and not putting it off. Okay, often when we put it off, it gets swallowed up with urgent tasks, the putting out of fires, those things that aren't actually growing our business. It might be leading to a closed transaction, but it's not helping us find the next one. And finally, we need to understand that breakthrough in our business requires breakout from our old systems. We need a change in the way that you work for it to show up in your results. Breakthrough requires you to be willing to change the way that you spend your time. Okay, so let's talk about a new way to spend our time. We've talked about how to create the goals, how to break it down into tactics, and even how to break it down into a weekly plan of daily activities. So we've just adopted some new beliefs when it comes to our time. And let's talk about how to implement that on our calendars. Okay, we're going to create a model work week using what's called performance time. And then each week when you do your weekly plan, we're going to put these performance time blocks on our calendar. I'm going to introduce to you 3 time blocks that are going to go on your calendar. They are strategic, buffer, and breakout. Your strategic time blocks are 3-hour blocks of time that should be scheduled at least once per week, but probably twice per week. Do not break this time up into smaller chunks. Okay, leave it 3 hours. The idea with a strategic time block is that you're going to have 3 hours of uninterrupted time to get stuff done. You're going to turn off your phone, turn off notifications, close the door. You're going to focus. This time is going to be spent doing the most important activities. Some activities that you might do during the strategic time block are review your progress on your goals, identify performance breakdowns and causes and determine strategies to overcome, and you're going to work on your key plan tactics during this time block. This is not your lead generation time block. This is we're working on the business, not in the business strategic time. It's best to put your strategic blocks early in the week. Same idea as doing that lead generation in the morning. Get it done before something else takes its place. After your strategic time blocks, you're going to add in buffer blocks. These are going to be 30 to 60-minute blocks, 1 to 2 times per day that you're working to get the urgent but less important things done. Things like emails, return phone calls, have short meetings, and other administrative tasks that require your attention. Okay, we're going to pre-plan those times into our day. And then finally, we're going to add breakout blocks to your calendar. These are going to be 3 hours in length, and they're going to be inside of your normal work week. And this is your mini vacation time. If you want to break this into smaller chunks, you are welcome to. This is a chance to recharge and refresh. Get a massage, leave at noon to go play golf. Mine would be leave at noon to go horseback riding. Take mini walks, right? These help you to manage stress and maintain balance. Okay, but we're going to do me a favor here. We're going to schedule our strategic and buffer blocks first. You're going to schedule your breakout blocks third. In addition to your strategic, buffer, and breakout blocks, you're going to add in other blocks to your calendar for other important activities like appointment time slots, showing homes, lead generation, and then leave in additional white space for executing tactics that are not included in your strategic blocks. Okay, so what might that look like? Your ideal calendar may look something like this. Notice I have actual days off. Okay, super important. I chose Sunday and Monday as my days off because that gives me Saturday to show properties or do open houses. Then I put my strategic time on Tuesday, which is my first work day of the week, and on Friday. Okay, now again, you don't have to have 2. You could have 1. I just prefer 2, one towards the beginning of the week and one towards the end. And remember, your strategic time is going to be used for things like reviewing progress on goals and tactics, identify performance breakdowns and causes, determine strategies to overcome, and work on those key plan tactics that's moving your business forward. During my weekly review, I'm actually going to identify what I'm going to work on during that week's strategic block. So if I'm doing my weekly planning, right, I'm going to identify during this week's strategic block, here's what I'm working on so that I know when I sit down for strategic time exactly what it is that I'm moving forward with. Okay, then I have 2 buffer blocks on most days. Again, these are used for getting the urgent but less important things done, emails, returning phone calls, having short meetings, and other administrative tasks that require your attention. I like to have one earlier in the day and one later in the day. It also allows me that on my email, I could set an auto responder that says, hey, thank you so much for your email. I checked my email at 8 a.m. in the morning and 4 p.m. in the afternoon, or whatever time those blocks are at. I've got my buffer blocks mostly at like 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Okay, so it allows me time to do that. I can even put it on my outgoing voicemail message. Thank you for your phone call. I return phone calls between 12 and 1 o'clock and between 4 and 5 o'clock. Okay, so that way we're setting expectations. Next, you're going to see my breakout block. I like all 3 hours together midweek. It's my time to go for a horseback ride during the week. I am also maybe completing like a DIY home project or just whatever I want to do that's going to re-energize me to finish the week strong. Okay. In addition, you'll see I have my weekly review on the first day of my week here at 8 a.m. along with my weekly accountability meeting. And then at the beginning of each day, I have my daily huddle. I blocked out 30 minutes, even though like the daily huddle should only be about 5 minutes. The other 25 minutes gives me time to review the day, plan for the current day, and make sure I'm ready to report for my daily huddle. All that extra white time on my calendar is when I can block things like lead gen, door knocking, buyer presentations, listing presentations, showing homes, doing inspections, and other tasks that aren't on my strategic list that still need to get done. Each Tuesday is the first day of my week. I will sit down and fill out the rest of the blocks each week and make sure that my strategic time works. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, it's important to work on our business, not just in our business. And that's what we're trying to do, is plan out time to do that. Our final step in our business plan is scorekeeping. Okay, measurement is going to drive execution. So in order to be able to gauge how we're doing, we need to be able to track our progress. There are a few ways that we should do that. The first is going to be tracking our key measures. Next is that we need to track our execution effectiveness. And finally, we need to make sure that we're paying attention. Okay, so let's start by digging into our key measures. Our key measures are made up a mix of lead and lag indicators. The difference between a lead and a lag indicator is that a lag indicator is the result, while the lead indicator is an early measurement to show progress towards the goal. So in real estate, lead generation is a lead indicator, where the lag measurement is the actual closed transaction. So if I have a sales goal of 11 homes sold, the number of homes sold, or the result, would be the lag indicator, whereas the number of doors knocked, open houses held, conversations had would be the action or the lead indicators. I recommend tracking them and posting them so that you and everyone else can see them, because nothing drives accountability like keeping it in front of us and knowing others can see our progress. There are places to track these items on the spreadsheet that I shared yesterday. We're going to revisit that here in a minute. The next thing that you want to measure is how effectively you're executing your tactics. This means that you need to know if you are actually completing the tactics on your weekly plan. To do this, you're going to calculate your execution score. Okay. To calculate an execution score, you're going to take the total number of tactics that you had scheduled to complete this week. You're going to divide that by the number of those tactics that you actually completed and then multiply it by 100. Actually, you're going to take your completed tactics, divide it by the total tactics, and then multiply it by 100 to get the percentage. For example, if you had 10 tactics to complete this week and you only completed 8 of those 10, you're going to figure the percentage of completion by taking 8, dividing it by 10, then multiplying it by 100. 8 divided by 10 is 0.8, multiplying by 100 is 80%. So that would be an 80% effectiveness score. Okay, you have control over your daily and weekly activities, not the results. So by completing the activities, you should get the results. It means that we need to track the activities and track our effectiveness of execution. It's also going to allow us to know whether we need to change what we're doing or we actually need to do the things. Okay. If we're like, I'm supposed to be calling all the people in my database, and my execution score of calling the people in my database is 20%, then I know that I'm not actually completing the step. So if I'm not getting the results, it's not I need to change what I'm saying on the phone. It's that I actually still need to pick up the phone. Okay. So that helps us to know whether it's the process that needs changed or whether we actually need to execute the process. Having lead and lag indicators won't mean anything if we aren't actually tracking and updating the metrics weekly. So every single week, you should know where you're at in regards to your lead and lag indicators. You should also know your execution scores. By tracking and updating your numbers weekly, it's going to let you know if you're on pace to hit your goal. Okay, it's going to allow you to know what you need to do to keep up progress or what you need to change to get back on track. Never, ever, ever be afraid to confront what your numbers are telling you. By being willing to acknowledge where you're at and see where you can make changes, it ensures that you're going to hit your goals and ultimately achieve your vision. Okay, and remember, we're going to be reporting these numbers out during your weekly or your WAM accountability meeting. Okay, along with knowing how to track, you should have a weekly execution routine because routines create habits. So if you get in the habit of holding yourself accountable through the weekly execution routine, then you're going to have results from your tactics and goals. So there's 3 parts to successful scorekeeping. The first is to give yourself a score weekly for your execution effectiveness. Be honest, if you didn't complete all the tasks all the way, it's not done. Second, each week you complete your weekly plan. Each week you're going to complete your weekly plan. And something that we didn't touch on previously is that it should contain the tactics due this week based on your plan, along with any unfinished tasks from the previous weeks. Now, keep in mind too that if my tactic is to get all the names in the database, okay, that's probably not going to happen in one 3-hour time block. If I've got 250 people to add in there, it's going to take some time. So it might be, hey, this week I've got until now, till December. I've counted up. I've got 200 people to get into my thing. That's 6 weeks. If I take 200 divided by 6, it's going to be roughly like 35 people every week that I need to get into my database, right? So my weekly tactic might be to input 35 people or 40 people into my database this week. That way I know what success looks like this week. Okay, so we can break down those tactics to get those items done. Okay. If I didn't get all 35 people into my database this week, then next week, I still have the new 35 people I'm supposed to be putting in, plus the 5 people that I missed from this week. So now I've got 40 people next week. Okay. Step 3 is going to be to attend your weekly accountability meeting or your WAM. And be sure to include successes, lessons learned, your scores, and what's in your plan for the coming week. If you're not on track, you can let your WAM partners know what you're committing to this week to help get you back on track. Okay, and you may want to update the group for progress on any prior commitments. If you're like, man, I didn't get any names in my database this week, so that would mean that I have 70 to do this next week, you might feel overwhelmed and like, well, that's definitely not going to happen. So you might decide that, hey, I'm going to spread those out over the course of 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So instead of 35 this week, I'm going to do 45 and then also 45 the week after that and the week after that to make up for the 35 that I missed, right? So we can spread it out, but let your partners know what you're doing. Make sure to write it down so that you can track it and you know what you're supposed to be doing. Most people find it hard to be successful in business because their comfort is more important than success. Okay, change is uncomfortable. Being honest with your results can be painful, but don't shy away from the pain. Lean into it and use it to propel yourself forward because you're not just going to grow your business, you're going to grow and become a better person by leaning into the pain. So at the end of each week, make sure you review your lead and lag indicators, review your execution score. If your execution score is below 80%, or if you're not on target with your leading and lag indicators, address the gaps. Review your performance breakdown and then make commitments for the upcoming week. Do me a favor though, and don't quit just because you aren't scoring well. Okay. This is a new process. It's going to take time to get the hang of the system and understand the process. Life's going to get in the way. We have to figure out how to overcome that. So hang in there, ask for help, get support. Your WAMs are going to be your safe space. Have hard conversations, but do it from an area of support. I'm going to share this next, the spreadsheet that we had yesterday. All right. So remember yesterday we covered our dream life form. We're just waiting for it to catch up to me. It's angry. Okay, so it's the same as yesterday, except I updated it over here. You can put in your average transaction fee over here on the, if you saved it yesterday, you could log back in and save it again. Here, let me click the share button here. Let me grab that link for you and throw it in the chat box. Maybe. There we go. Copy link. All right, that's in the chat box. So over here on the far right-hand side, you can put in your average transaction fee and your average TC fee, or your transaction coordination fee. It will automatically subtract that out of your average commission. Okay, also what it's going to do is if you have closed sales, down here, I added in where we can put total closed listings. You would put the address, sales price, your gross commission income, and where that business came from. Okay, it's going to automatically calculate the number of closed units for you. It's also going to automatically calculate your total sales price and your total gross commission income from listings, and then calculate out those averages. Okay. It's also going to calculate out your average commission percentage for your listings. The next section, here's our listings that went live that didn't close. So if we have listings that are currently active that have not closed, they would go in this section. If we have listings that got a listing agreement signed that didn't, that went active, that they withdrew the listing, that's going to go here as well. That's a lost sale. We're going to count that in here, where you're just going to put the address. You're going to skip the gray boxes and put where that business came from. Okay. The next section is listings signed that didn't go active. Did you have listings that signed that never actually went on the market? Maybe you still have a signed listing agreement. It still hasn't gone live. We're going to put those here. Okay. Again, we're going to put the address or the client's name, probably address, and then where that business came from. The next section down here, this is our closed sales or our buyer transactions. You're going to put buyers' names. You're going to put your sales price. You're going to put your gross commission income. You're going to put source of business. You got like 10 spaces for that. Here's buyers that accepted an offer that didn't close escrow, either because they're not going to close this year, they're going to close next year, or they canceled on the transaction. We can put that here. And this says buyers with signed agreements that didn't get offers accepted. Either they haven't written offers, they haven't written anything that's gotten accepted yet. We're going to put them here with the source of business. That way we're tracking down all of our sources of business. It's going to, based on the information put here, it's going to automatically calculate out your average gross commission. And again, if you put in numbers here, it's going to subtract these from that, and then it's going to calculate out what you need here based on this information. So I did update this sheet to be really smart for you. Okay, the next tab over is your values. We talked about that yesterday, uncovering your values. Put them in here. You can put your single statement for each one in there. The next tab is for lead generation tracking. If you want to track your lead generation activities, this is going to make you more effective. I promise. I did not update the dates on this one. I might get around to doing that today. It might not be until tomorrow. I will update them at some point. Here, these are just ideas. Like if we have our database, our sphere of influence, how many phone calls did you make this week? How many conversations did you have, right? Maybe I made 150 phone calls. That would be 150 different people. I dialed their phone number. Maybe out of those, I talked to 70 of them, right? How many text messages did you send? Maybe I also sent, I don't know, 253 text messages. And from those, I got 82 or 83 replies. How many people did I interact with on social media? How many people replied on social media? Did I deliver any pop buys? Did I receive any referrals? And did I set any appointments? Okay, this is going to be the basis for knowing what our ratios are, because if we know that, hey, I made 250 calls in the month of November and I set 7 appointments, now I know how to get to appointments. And then we can track, well, how many appointments did you get to actually sign agreements, right? We've got leads from listings, open houses. You can change these up. You can change the items tracked. I got social media farm. There's no wrong or right answer here. And then at the end of each week, you can reflect what worked well, what didn't work well, what needs to be changed, what should you focus on next week, right? So there's a little place that you can provide feedback for yourself. So these would all be lead indicators, right? These would be, hey, what actions am I doing to try to get the results that I want of closed transactions? Okay, so there we have lead gen tracking. The next tabby to the left is our goal tracking. This one has, hey, how many appointments did we actually hold, right? So on our lead gen, we said, hey, how many appointments did we set? Now, how many appointments did we hold? We're going to fill in this yellow line here. How many agreements did we got signed, either a listing agreement or a buyer representation agreement? How many closings did we have that week? Okay. What was the gross commission income from the closings that we had? If you had more than one closing, you're going to add those together. Here, it gives you a place to put in your execution score. How many total tactics did you have? How many tactics did you complete? It's going to calculate out that score for you, so you don't even have to do math. And then here we have, what were your commitments from last week? What were the results of those commitments? What has happened since last week? What business challenges are you currently facing? What personal challenges are you currently facing? And what should you focus on to move forward? And then how will you know you've succeeded in moving forward? Okay, it also gives you a place that you can track your pipeline. How many active listings do you have that aren't currently in contract? How many pending transactions, those would be buyers and sellers, do you have? And how many listing agreements or buyer representations do you have signed that aren't accounted for in either of these by either pending or active listings? If you come in here, just so you know, into this box, you can put in, like, if I've got active listings, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, sample street. If I hit control and enter, it takes me down to another line so that I can input things on different lines. So control and return or control and enter will keep you in the same box, but give you different lines so they don't have to be like all jumbled together. All right, so there's that tracking tool in case you want to use it. There's one more tracking tool on here. It's called the economic model. This one I don't have set up completely yet. The goal would be that it auto pulls most of this information from the other spreadsheets as far as conversion ratios and other things, because it'll spit out how many actual appointments you need. Like if we need 2 listings sold, that means we need how many listings based on your conversion rate versus appointments. So if I close 75% of my listing appointments turned into a signed listing agreement, then that means that I need 3 appointments to get 2 agreements. And if I have a 90% close ratio on my active listings to closed listings, then that would result in 2 listings. So it kind of does that math for you. That's the economic model in there. We can talk about that more another day if you guys would like to dive into that. But there's your business plan. So first steps are vision and values. Well, values and then vision. Look back over 2025. Figure out what your baseline needs are. Figure out what your dream life looks like to figure out where you want to be closing wise for 2026. It should be in alignment with your vision and your values. And then second part is put together your goals, your tactics, and then execute your plan on a weekly basis and make sure that we're keeping score. Questions, thoughts, or ahas before we wrap up today? All right, fabulous. Well, I appreciate you guys joining me today. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. If you want some help with this, again, I do have some slots available to give you some one-on-one assistance. I look forward to seeing you guys' success over 2026. Hopefully, you guys take some time this week to put together your business plan so you can start executing that so you hit the ground running with closings come January. You are welcome, Shauna. Have a fabulous day.